In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where civilizations stretch across millennia and technological prowess defines power, one species stands out for its paradox. Human beings, fragile and short-lived, should be insignificant in the grand scheme of the stars. Their homeworld is unremarkable, their technology primitive, and their survival depends on artificial assistance. Yet, when disaster strikes and the galaxy's most advanced species are helpless, it is humanity that turns the tide. How? Through relentless determination, a willingness to fail, and the courage to sacrifice everything for others. In a galaxy defined by perfection, humans prove that imperfection, compassion, and selflessness are the true measures of strength. The question is no longer why they deserve to be among the stars, but how they earn the trust of every species in the galaxy. The answer lies in their unique response to the crisis, and it's a story the galaxy will never forget. The grand Arabs of Senda Station hung suspended in the vast emptiness of space, a towering, crystalline structure unlike any other in the galaxy. It was a place of immense significance, housing the collective knowledge and wisdom of countless species, each contributing to the ever-expanding archive within its walls. The station's endless corridors and study chambers contain the answers to some of the greatest mysteries in the universe, holding records from species far older and more advanced than humanity. Every corner of the station was bathed in a soft, radiant glow, the very walls humming with the accumulated thoughts of 1,000 cultures. Within these chambers, scholars and researchers from across the galaxy gather to study, learn, and exchange ideas, advancing their understanding of the cosmos with each passing day. Among those gathered in one of these study chambers was Vexel, a senior archist who had dedicated his life to the pursuit of knowledge. He was a species of beings known for their wisdom and patience, with a long history of guiding young minds as they navigated the complexities of the galaxy. Vexel stood in front of a holographic display, his eyes fixed on the data unfolding before him, yet his thoughts were focused elsewhere. He had a younger apprentice named Kira, a bright and eager student who was at the beginning of their journey to understand the deeper mysteries of the universe. Kira, like many others of their kind, had much to learn, and Vexel had been patiently watching as their apprentice grappled with difficult questions about the nature of the galaxy and its inhabitants. The station was not just a physical space, but a symbolic one. It represented the pinnacle of intellectual achievement for many species, a place where different cultures came together to share their knowledge and ensure that nothing would be lost to time. It was here, in these study chambers, that the most difficult questions were asked and the most complex problems were solved. Yet, despite the vastness of this repository of knowledge, Vexel had learned over the years that some questions were harder to answer than others, especially when it came to understanding humanity. For all its advancements in technology and exploration, humanity's place in the galaxy remained something of a paradox, puzzling even the most advanced species. Vexel observed Kira carefully, noting the subtle shift in their apprentice's demeanor. Kira's scales had taken on a deep purple hue, a color that signified frustration and confusion. It was a common sight these days, as many young scholars, especially those who had never encountered humanity before, struggled to comprehend the peculiar place that humans held among the stars. Despite their limitations, humans were frequently called upon to lead in times of crisis, their judgment respected by species who were far more advanced in nearly every way. It was a mystery that seemed to defy logic, and it was one that Vexel knew would eventually trouble Kira as well. He had seen it before, the moment when the young scholars, eager to solve every riddle, came face to face with the inexplicable. Kira's confusion was evident in the way their scales shifted, a pattern of colors flickering rapidly as they tried to process the information on the holographic display. Their primary eyes remained fixed on the data, but their secondary eyes blinked in rapid succession, betraying the turmoil within. Despite all the knowledge stored in the station, despite the countless species that had advanced far beyond humanity, Kira couldn't understand why humans held such a prominent place in galactic affairs. Theirs was a species that seemed to lack any of the qualities one would expect from a dominant force in the galaxy. They had short lifespans, they were physically fragile, and they were entirely dependent on artificial technology to survive in the harsh environments of space. In Kira's mind, it was a paradox that defied reason. The homeworld of humanity, Earth, was nothing remarkable either. It was a small, largely insignificant planet compared to the grand, long-lived civilizations of other species. Humanity had only recently discovered how to travel faster than light, and their technological advancements, though impressive in their own right, were still primitive when measured against the capabilities of species that had been exploring the stars for millennia. On top of that, humans lacked natural defenses. They had no inherent abilities to survive in extreme conditions, no adaptive traits that made them resilient in the face of galactic dangers. And yet, when it came to moments of crisis, it was humanity's judgment that other species deferred to. The questions tumbled in Kira's mind: why? Why, with all their shortcomings, were humans treated with such reverence? What was it about them that made them indispensable to the galaxy? Kira had spent years studying the many species in the galaxy, observing their history and the factors that had contributed to their success. It was always clear that advanced technology, longevity, and natural adaptability were the key elements that determined a species' significance. Yet humans seemed to break all the rules. Their history was filled with conflict, disease, and struggle, and yet they had emerged as one of the most respected and influential species. It didn't make sense. Kira had encountered many species in their studies, but none of them seemed to possess the contradictions that humans did. The more Kira tried to reason through it, the more elusive the answers became. The human paradox was a mystery that resisted logic, a puzzle that didn't fit within the frameworks that had always guided Kira's understanding of galactic affairs. Vexel had anticipated this moment. It was a common hurdle for young scholars to face. No matter how much they studied, no matter how deeply they delved into the histories of countless species, they inevitably reached a point where human influence and significance defied explanation. This was the moment when the question of the human paradox first took shape in the minds of every young scholar. It was a question that, when left unanswered, could lead to frustration, even doubt. And yet, Vexel knew the answer wasn't as elusive as it seemed. Humans, in their own way, had earned their place among the stars, not through their superior technology or longevity, but through something far deeper, a trait that at first glance seemed almost insignificant, but which had proven to be their greatest strength. Vexel prepared to offer Kira the explanation they had been waiting for, knowing that understanding would not come from logic alone, but from looking at humanity through a different lens. Vexel had been expecting this moment, the point at which Kira's frustration would reach its peak. It was inevitable. Every young scholar who studied humanity eventually found themselves perplexed by the apparent contradictions that defined the human species. Kira's confusion was a rite of passage, and Vexel had seen it in many apprentices before. There was a moment in every generation of scholars where the limits of logic and reasoning would fail to explain humanity's position in the galaxy. That moment had come for Kira, and Vexel was ready to guide them through it. With the quiet confidence that came from years of experience, Vexel's voice resonated in the chamber, his tone calm and measured as he prepared to offer Kira the answer they had been seeking. The senior archist knew that to fully understand humanity's place among the stars, Kira would need to consider not just their history and technology, but the way they responded to crises, especially when faced with challenges that seemed insurmountable. Vexel had witnessed firsthand the pivotal role humans played during some of the most devastating events in galactic history. It wasn't just about their scientific achievements or their ability to adapt to new environments. It was about something deeper, something intrinsic to their nature, a quality that transcended their physical and technological limitations. The answer, Vexel knew, lay in humanity's unique ability to confront challenges with a different mindset, a willingness to embrace imperfection and learn from failure rather than striving for the flawless solutions favored by other species. With a slow, deliberate motion, Vexel adjusted the holographic display, shifting the focus to a historical event that would help Kira understand. The Great Plague of the Seventh Cycle, an event that had nearly wiped out galactic civilization, was an ideal starting point. It was a crisis that had tested the limits of even the most advanced species, And yet it was humanity's involvement that had ultimately turned the tide. Vexel could see Kira's attention sharpening, their scales shifting to a deeper shade of blue-green as they recalled the details from their studies. Kira was already familiar with the plague, but they had never considered the human role in the outcome in this light. Vexel knew that once Kira understood the significance of this event, they would begin to grasp what made humanity so indispensable. The senior artist's voice softened as he began to recount the history of the plague, explaining how, despite the efforts of the galaxy's most technologically advanced species, the crisis seemed insurmountable. The Ashanti, with their mastery of quantum computing and biological manipulation, had been unable to crack the plague's code. The Zentri, renowned for their expertise in genetic engineering, were similarly powerless. Even the ancient Mirith, whose civilization had lasted millions of years, had no answers. But it was humanity, a relatively young species with a history of struggle and resilience, who had provided the solution. Vexel knew that Kira would soon understand that the true strength of humanity wasn't in their advanced technologies, but in their unyielding determination to persevere and adapt, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The Great Plague of the Seventh Cycle had spread like wildfire across the galaxy, striking fear into the hearts of all species. Initially, no one knew what to do. The disease, a bacterial entropy cascade, was unlike anything the galaxy had encountered before. It spread with terrifying speed, leaving devastation in its wake. Infected planets turned into quarantine zones, and entire populations were decimated before anyone had a chance to formulate a response. The Ashanti, with their unparalleled ability to manipulate biology through quantum computing, tried and failed to stop it. Their best minds were baffled. The Zentri, masters of genetic manipulation, found themselves powerless to alter the disease's course. Even the Mirith, with their millennia of knowledge and experience, were unable to find a solution. The situation seemed hopeless, and many feared that the galaxy's advanced civilizations would soon collapse under the plague's relentless assault. At this critical juncture, humanity, though technologically primitive in comparison, stepped forward with an approach that seemed almost backward to the other species. While the other civilizations had relied on their cutting-edge technology and scientific methodologies, the humans offered something different. They were not initially able to develop a perfect cure or even a clear plan of attack. Instead, they took a more chaotic and unpredictable approach. Human scientists, in collaboration with alien researchers, began testing a wide array of partial solutions. They did not seek a single perfect answer, but rather embraced the uncertainty and messiness of the situation. For every failed attempt, they learned something new, refining their methods with each failure. This trial and error process was unlike anything the other species had considered. It appeared to be inefficient and haphazard, but it was this very quality that set humanity apart. What truly turned the tide in humanity's favor was their willingness to embrace imperfection and adapt quickly. The humans did not demand perfection from themselves or their solutions. Instead, they learned from their mistakes, tweaking their methods and trying again. They were driven by a sense of urgency that many other species found difficult to understand. While other civilizations worked slowly, analyzing data and searching for ideal solutions, humanity's researchers worked tirelessly, their minds fixated on the immediate need for a cure. They did not wait for the perfect technology or a flawless answer. They acted in the face of uncertainty, even when the odds seemed impossible. This determination, this relentless pursuit of solutions, was something that no other species could match. The breakthrough came when a human scientist, Dr. Sarahan, made an astonishing discovery. She realized that the plague was not just a disease. It was weaponized evolution, a biological attack designed to outpace any standard treatment. Rather than attempting to directly combat the plague, the humans proposed a radical solution. They introduced controlled mutations into the virus, forcing it to evolve into a less deadly form. It was messy, imperfect, and risky, but it worked. The disease gradually weakened as it adapted to the mutations, and the plague began to recede. The other species watched in awe as the humans' unconventional methods proved successful. It was not just a medical victory. It was a triumph of human ingenuity, persistence, and the ability to find solutions where others saw only dead ends. The galaxy's respect for humanity grew exponentially, as their unconventional, imperfect approach had saved millions of lives and ensured that the galactic civilizations could continue. What set humanity apart from the more advanced species was not just their ability to find a solution, but the way they approached the crisis itself. While many other species prioritized their technological superiority and the pursuit of flawless solutions, humans demonstrated an extraordinary willingness to face the unknown, embracing imperfection as a path to success. The other species had been bogged down by their own need for perfection and certainty. They sought perfect answers through advanced technology, trusting that their vast resources and sophisticated methods would eventually solve the problem. But the humans, instead of waiting for a perfect, technologically sound solution, threw themselves into a chaotic and urgent process of trial and error, learning from each failure and adjusting their methods along the way. This willingness to fail and keep trying was something the other species found difficult to comprehend, but it was also something that allowed humanity to succeed where others had faltered. Humanity's approach was not only about finding solutions. It was about the drive to act, to do something in the face of an overwhelming crisis. While other species hesitated, carefully considering their next moves, humans worked without rest, driven by the knowledge that inaction would lead to more suffering. This urgency became a defining characteristic of their response. The other civilizations, accustomed to their more measured and calculated ways of addressing problems, were at a loss when it came to humanity's relentless, almost frantic efforts. Their methods appeared crude and rushed to outside observers. Yet it was precisely this urgency that enabled humanity to push through the crisis when others had failed to act decisively. It was not a quiet, careful approach, but rather a loud, persistent push forward that made all the difference. In addition to their rapid action, humans displayed a level of self-sacrifice that was unmatched in the galaxy. While most species focused on protecting their own, humans took the bold step of putting themselves at risk for the benefit of others. They didn't just work tirelessly in their labs. They also volunteered to test experimental treatments on themselves. Despite the clear risks, they made no demands for guarantees or assurances. Their scientists, doctors, and medical personnel put themselves on the front lines, traveling to the most infected worlds to deliver aid. Even species that had shown them hostility in the past were not excluded from their help. The Drachnid homeworld, for example, had been quarantined and closed off from the rest of the galaxy due to the severity of the outbreak. Yet human ships managed to break through the blockade to deliver vital medical supplies. These actions were a direct reflection of humanity's values. They were willing to risk their lives, not only for their own survival, but for the survival of others, even those who had previously shown them nothing but contempt. The depth of humanity's compassion and willingness to put others above their own safety stood in stark contrast to the more calculating nature of many other species. For the Ashani, Zentri, and Mirith, self-preservation was the top priority. And while they were willing to help others, they did so with a level of detachment that made it clear their primary concern was their own survival and success. Humans, however, were different. Their willingness to sacrifice themselves, to give up their own safety for the good of others, earned them respect throughout the galaxy. This was the true measure of their greatness, Vexel explained to Kira. Not just their technological prowess, but their profound empathy and selflessness. It was this unique blend of traits that had ultimately secured humanity's place in the galaxy. Not as the most powerful or the most advanced, but as the species whose judgment others trusted in times of greatest need. The turning point in the crisis came when Dr. Sarahan, a human scientist, uncovered a breakthrough that none of the galaxy's more advanced civilizations had considered. She discovered that the plague was not just a biological disease. It was a weaponized form of evolution itself. The plague's rapid mutations made it nearly impossible for traditional treatments to keep up. Each time a cure or remedy was introduced, the disease would evolve and adapt, rendering the treatment ineffective. The other species, with their vast technological and genetic expertise, were focused on finding a direct way to defeat the pathogen, relying on their superior technology and precise methods. But this linear, perfection-driven approach failed because it couldn't keep up with the plague's ever-changing nature. The idea of weaponizing evolution was something they simply could not conceive of, as it went against the controlled, predictable strategies they favored. Dr. Sarahan, however, recognized that to defeat the plague, they had to think outside of the conventional frameworks. Rather than fighting the disease directly, humans proposed introducing controlled mutations to force the plague to evolve into a less harmful form. This approach was messy, unpredictable, and risky, but it was also a stroke of brilliance. The human team didn't attempt to design a flawless solution. Instead, they understood that by introducing mutations at the right moments, they could push the plague into a form that would be less lethal and easier to control. The decision was not based on perfect scientific certainty, but on a willingness to embrace chaos and imperfection as part of the process. This was a concept that the more advanced species had dismissed out of hand, but it was precisely this unconventional thinking that allowed humanity to find a solution when all others had failed. The method was not without its challenges. As the humans introduced these control mutations, the results were not guaranteed. In fact, the process was dangerous and fraught with the potential for catastrophic failure. Each mutation was an experiment, and for every failure, there was the possibility of worsening the situation. Yet, humanity's perseverance and their ability to learn from each trial allowed them to gradually refine their approach. The galaxy watched, both in awe and disbelief, as the humans' messy, imprecise methods began to show signs of success. With each passing day, the plague weakened. The controlled mutations were forcing the disease to evolve into a less deadly strain, and slowly but surely, the crisis began to subside. Humanity's ability to accept imperfection and learn from failure had turned the tide in a way no other species had anticipated. As the plague finally receded, the galaxy's other species were left stunned by the result. What had seemed like a series of desperate, haphazard efforts from humanity had, against all odds, proven to be the key to survival. Dr. Sarahan's breakthrough not only saved countless lives, but also showcased the value of humanity's unique approach to problem solving. While other species had relied on their advanced technologies and expertise, humanity had leaned into uncertainty, acting with urgency and adapting in real time. The success of their unconventional methods demonstrated that sometimes, in the face of a crisis, the best solution is not the perfect one, but the one that can be executed quickly, decisively, and with the willingness to learn from mistakes. This approach, though far from flawless, was what ultimately earned humanity the respect and trust of the galaxy. What truly set humanity apart in the eyes of the galaxy was not just their ingenuity, but their willingness to sacrifice themselves for others. While many advanced species were focused on their own survival and safety, the humans displayed a level of selflessness that seemed almost incomprehensible to the other civilizations. During the height of the plague, when the galaxy was on the brink of collapse, humans did not hesitate to put themselves at risk in order to help those in need, even when it meant jeopardizing their own lives. It was this willingness to act, even in the face of danger, that earned them the trust and admiration of countless species. They weren't just trying to save themselves, they were trying to save everyone. As the plague spread, many species were too concerned with protecting their own people to offer significant aid to others. Those who were not directly affected by the disease focused on securing their own borders, maintaining quarantine zones, and ensuring the safety of their own populations. In contrast, humans disregarded their own safety in the pursuit of a greater good. They sent their medical personnel to the most infected and dangerous worlds, even when there was little hope of survival for the human volunteers. Doctors and researchers willingly put themselves in harm's way, knowing the risks, but driven by a deep sense of duty to help those who were suffering. The willingness to make such sacrifices, without hesitation, became one of humanity's defining qualities in the eyes of the galaxy. Even more striking was humanity's willingness to extend help to species who had previously shown them no kindness. The arachnids, for example, had once regarded humans with suspicion and distrust, but when their homeworld was ravaged by the plague, humans were the first to break through the quarantine to deliver much-needed medical supplies. The drachnids had been unwilling to open their borders to outsiders, especially humans, but the humans acted out of compassion, knowing that the lives of countless individuals depended on it. It was a dangerous mission. Human ships had to bypass blockades, risking capture or death, but they did it anyway. The act was not just one of charity, but of moral principle. Humanity's actions reflected a core belief that all lives, regardless of species, were valuable. This was a powerful demonstration of their empathy, something that stood in stark contrast to the self-preservation instincts of many other civilizations. This profound selflessness did not go unnoticed. The galaxy's most advanced species had long prided themselves on their technological prowess and strategic minds, but none could match the raw empathy and courage of humanity. They had demonstrated that, at their core, their greatest strength was not their technology or their biological adaptability, but their capacity for empathy and sacrifice. The other species were forced to confront the fact that while they had the means to save themselves, it was humanity's willingness to put the lives of others above their own that had proven to be the decisive factor in overcoming the crisis. In the end, it wasn't their scientific advancements that secured humanity's place in the galaxy. It was their selflessness and their commitment to the well-being of others, even at the cost of their own lives. This was the quality that made humanity not just an ally, but a vital and respected member of the galactic community. As the crisis finally subsided and the plague was brought under control, the galaxy found itself in awe of humanity's role in the outcome. What had initially seemed like a series of chaotic and desperate actions now stood as a testament to human resilience and ingenuity. The other species, who had once viewed humanity as a relatively insignificant presence in the galaxy, now saw them in a new light. They had earned their place among the stars, not through sheer technological superiority or biological prowess, but through their ability to confront crises head-on, adapt quickly, and most importantly, their willingness to sacrifice for the greater good. Humanity had shown that when faced with a seemingly insurmountable problem, it was not always the most advanced technology or the smartest minds that prevailed, but the ability to act without hesitation, learn from mistakes, and persist in the face of adversity. Vexel watched with quiet satisfaction as Kira absorbed the implications of the story. He understood that the young apprentice was beginning to see the essence of what made humanity unique. While the galaxy's other species often relied on perfect solutions and calculated risks, humans had embraced the uncertainty of the moment, using their ingenuity to navigate an unpredictable path. Their willingness to fail, learn, and adapt had been what allowed them to solve the crisis when others could not. It was this drive to do something, even when the odds seemed impossible, that had set them apart from other species who often hesitated in the face of uncertainty. Humanity's approach to problem-solving was not based on waiting for the perfect answer, but on taking action, learning from the process, and being willing to accept that imperfection was often part of the solution. The galaxy's respect for humanity grew significantly in the years following the Great Plague, as other species realized that it was not just their technological advances that made humanity a valuable ally, but their profound moral compass. The other civilizations, for all their advancements, had shown reluctance to step outside their carefully constructed strategies. They had placed the survival of their own species above the needs of others, often leaving the most vulnerable to fend for themselves. Humanity, however, had done the opposite. By putting themselves at risk to help those in need, even those who had shown hostility in the past, humans had demonstrated a level of empathy and solidarity that the other species had never fully understood until that moment. It was a lesson in selflessness that resonated throughout the galaxy, and it was one that the other civilizations had to accept, even if it challenged their long-held beliefs about strength and survival. The realization was profound, and it marked a new chapter in humanity's relationship with the galaxy. No longer seen as a species that was struggling to catch up, humanity had proven that their worth did not lie in technological mastery or physical dominance, but in their ability to lead with compassion, to act decisively when needed, and to value the lives of others above their own. Humanity has earned a place among the stars, not through perfection, but through their willingness to act with courage and empathy in times of crisis. The galaxy, once divided by its many differences, now found common ground in their recognition of this remarkable species. And as Vexel looked at Kira, he knew that the young scholar was beginning to grasp the most important lesson of all. Humanity's true strength lay in their humanity itself.